Yesterday, I told you how after my stroke, I joined a Zen temple. The basic question that I had, apart from wanting to meditate together, was, is what I do even meditation? And this question got answered. I think I told you that. And I came to the Zen temple with a letter from Soen Ozeki. He had planted these words in my head, and after the stroke, these kept me going. This is my beginning. Each day in life is training. Training for myself. Though failure is possible, living each moment equal to anything, ready for everything. I am alive. I am this moment. My future is here and now. For if I cannot endure today, when and where will I? These are called the words for each day by Soen Ozeki from the Daisen In Zen temple in Kyoto. Those made an incredible impression on me. Don't know why. They seemed so universally applicable. And after the stroke, when I knew nothing, I could reproduce these words. There would be pieces of long-term memory that would pop up with incredible clarity, and this was one of them. Now, I was in a lot of pain as my nervous system rewired, and I called those attacks of neuropathic pain daymares later. I called them attacks first, but that was confusing. And then I called them episodes, which was confusing. So at some point, I invented the term daymares. Make it my own thing, because nobody seemed to know this from medical texts. What would happen was every nerve input, so basically every input, would just fire at random, which would feel to me like pain in my body somewhere. And different kinds of pain, like burning or scratching or tearing or all kinds of feelings. Not many of them very pleasant. And there was nothing to do about them. I went into the hospital in the middle of one of those attacks, and all that they could see was that my heart rate was elevated. So they said, maybe you should calm down, this is a panic attack. I said, well, I'm currently meditating. I could stop meditating. And And then my heart rate went to 200 within seconds. So they said, no, meditate. That was all they could do for me. So I meditated through that, and having a little bit of help with that was very nice. So I started listening to TAG007. I have no idea how you pronounce that. And he did beautiful Dharma talks on YouTube that would soothe me so much. And there was this one particular song where the singer sang Avilokiteshvara Yama, I believe. That's the whole lyrics. But just beautifully and very soothing. And they would do that for half an hour maybe. So that coincided pretty good with my attacks. They would last usually 2 hours, and then after 2 hours my bowels would start working again, and I could go more, and then I knew it would be over soon. And usually I played that song 2 or 3 times. So then I started noticing that there was a very regular pattern to them, which made them even more bearable. At some point, I would just set a clock to 2 hours, and I found even more pattern to it. But I'll get to that quickly, I guess. One of the texts that TAG007 wrote December 15, 2021. This one that I actually wrote on a blank that was next to my bed so that I would see it when I woke up. And it's very short. Waking up. It's called the Waking Up Gatha. Gatha is kind of Zen pointing from a master, I guess. I don't know the term. Waking up this morning, I smile. 24 brand new hours are before me. I vow to live fully in each moment, to look at beings with eyes of compassion. So that became my waking up, because when I woke up, the memories would start flooding in, and I wouldn't really know if they were true, because I had no recollection of having those memories before, which is weird, but this is how we check if memory is actually memory or not fantasy, was my conclusion, because I didn't know. And the memories that I had were kind of terrible, having just gone through a divorce and losing most of my job and ability, and well, I wasn't in a pleasant situation. So I thought I was having a nightmare, but this was what I woke up to. So waking up this morning, I smile, became very important, because then I would realize at this point I'm laying in bed, there's nothing that I need to do. I may be hungry, So this will get me in motion, doing things. I might be wanting to go to the toilet, same thing. But other than that, everything is okay. Body's feeling quite relaxed. Mind is quite relaxed. We're just getting started with the day, 24 brand new hours. Changed it a little to 18 brand new hours because then I would sleep again. And I changed it to live fully each moment, to take that smile into the breath. So each time I breathed in, I'd smile in thankfulness for another breath. And there was all kinds of emotions coming up all the time. I was angry a lot, so looking at other beings with eyes of compassion was a very good camera. So those you still got from me did that. So I started telling you about the day bears. I didn't start calling them day bears until the second year, start of the second year, where I tried again to get help and ended up in the office of a neurologist, where I would say what my problem was, which was the attacks mostly. Having that memory, but I could work around that. But the attacks disabled me completely. And at that point, they were each day, sometimes twice a day. And sometimes not for a day and then again. So I was describing this, that I would feel every possible kind of feeling, also get emotionally enormously confused. Every type of thing would come up: fear, despair, hatred, everything, anger, loads of fear. I would almost every time believe that I was dying. So I have thought for more than a year, every day, sometimes multiple times in the day, that I was dying in that moment, and I totally believed that. Each day, after about a month, each day I found a way to be okay with that. And that way was always different. So I was telling this to the neurologist, we call it attacks. She said, well, don't call it attacks because that is like a seizure. It is confusing because it is a neurological type of classification. So then I think you mean that this. Well, I didn't mean that. So I switched to episodes. She said, no, that's for another neurological classification. So that's also unclear. So then I said, okay, how about daymares? She said, okay, then let's call it that for now. And I never stopped calling it that because it's actually a perfect fit. It's like a nightmare, but when you're awake. They have not stopped, but grown less painful. as intense. Still last about 2 hours. This morning I had one at 4 o'clock that lasted an hour, so they're getting less reliable. And this was the first time this month, maybe the second. So there has been progression. Let's see where we are in the story. 4 minutes left. So I didn't know what these nightmares were, but I had this theory. I have many theories, but this one stayed because every time I had a daymare, I would notice the next day that something had returned. And even if this weren't true, some ability had returned. Even if this weren't true, this made me endure the daymares because it's for a good cause, and we can take a lot of suffering if it's for a good cause. And from this grew the idea that it was like a neurological reset. If you install new hardware, then you shut off the computer and you turn it on again. It was kind of like that for me. Only it was a new hardware. It was when a path to a specific cluster in the cortex or neocortex, the outer part of the brain, was established. Then I think this kind of reset was necessary. And at first it was every sense, so I would also see impossible things. At some point I saw a squid, a black squid, like being hanging in my living room, dripping onto the floor with some kind of acid drops that would dissolve the floor. I knew it wasn't true in the normal sense of true, but it was hanging there. And at some point it disappeared into a crack in the wall, which it never fit into. And it felt holy or godlike or something. So I have no idea what it would be, but it felt like it should be a religious experience. I just found it very weird. I called it the Lord of Curves. Not really sure why. I would get very creative after, and sometimes during, a daymare, usually in the second phase, and they would have clear phases. So at first I would not notice that I was in a daymare, so I would get agitated or fearful or whatever, and feel itchy or my nauseous for no reason. And I think, oh, what is this? And after 15 to 30 minutes, I would figure out this was one of those daymares again, because I had very little memory. So it took a very long time to be able to identify these. And then I would just lie down, set the clock, and then usually after about an hour, there was like an intermission, 10 minutes or 5 minutes of me thinking it was done.